Hello, my name is Marshall Edens. This is my final project presentation for Geography 883, titled How Much Riparian Forest Does a School District Need? GIS Products for Students and Their Community. The problem that inspired my project was an opportunity more than a problem. Students in the high school where I work evaluate local streams. They test water chemistry and survey the macroinvertebrate populations to gauge the health of the streams. As of now, our students do not evaluate in any way the streamside riparian zones, which are critical to maintaining the biology and chemistry of these delicate ecosystems. Stroud Water Research Center, located in the county east of where I teach, has some of the longest running riparian buffer experiments in the world, and is an authority on the subject. They state that small streams require at least 30 meters of riparian buffer. I use this advice as part of my project stream evaluation, as I would urge students evaluating any of our local streams. The objective of my project was to sample some local streams in my area and analyze the riparian buffers as a precursor to such work that our students might do. I also seek to bring GIS to my students going forward, so my project was also intended to be shared with students so that they might see the value of a GIS in problem solving. The study area for the project is within my school district in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I chose 3 streams that our students regularly take field trips to in their science coursework: the Conestoga River, Stauffer Run, and Mill Creek. These streams all differ in their stream order, a measure of how small or large a stream is, which has a lot to do with its characteristics and biology. A stream order of 1 indicates a headwater arising from perhaps a spring, as does Stauffer Run in my project, and the Conestoga River, for example, is a major river of nearly 30 meters across in places, which is a stream order of 4. Here are the 3 streams shown more closely in blue, with a bounding polygon in red. The yellow stars represent schools in my district which sit near the chosen streams. This was an important criterion of the selection process. I used 0.6 meter NAPE imagery collected in 2019. It has 4 bands, RGB and near infrared. I also used LiDAR data for the production of elevation models. These point clouds were also sampled in 2019, in March, but still when leaves were on trees, which is important so that they match the NAPE imagery. Here is the study area showing the stream polygons and the NAPE imagery tile boundary and footprints. I required 7 files in total. To the right, I show the 5 LiDAR files needed for the smallest stream, Stauffer Run. I used 8 additional LiDAR files for Mill Creek and another 10 for the Conestoga River. To delineate the streams, I used this 2019 hydrology file. Notice that not all the data were in common coordinate systems, but I was careful to project all the data to NAD 1983 state plane with US feet for the units. My workflow began in ArcGIS Pro 3.0. I used the LiDAR data to produce 2.5-foot spatial resolution NDSMs. To do this, I created a DEM from ground points in the LiDAR and a DSM from first returns, then subtracted the DEM from the DSM using the minus raster function. I had to do this for every tile that you saw on the previous screen. Next, I worked with the NAPE imagery to produce rasters that matched the spatial resolution of the NDSM and overlapped it perfectly. I used the resample tool with a snap raster parameter to accomplish this. Lastly, I clipped the NAPE and NDSM rasters to the project stream boundaries. These products would then be used in eCognition for the classification. The workflow in eCognition was consistent with the Geobia techniques learned in the course. I performed segmentation using quad tree, multi-resolution, and spectral difference algorithms. I produced only 2 classes, trees and non-trees. The classified polygons were then brought back into ArcGIS Pro for the final stages of the workflow. And on this screen, you can see one sample of the NAPE image showing RGB background and the NDSM running in the red and blue channels to produce a purple color in the trees. And I think it did a pretty good job of segmenting most of the taller trees and leaving the shadows alone, which I was happy to see. The full process tree is copy and pasted here at the right as well. I determined the percent area of the tree and non-tree classes within 5, 15, and 30 meters for each stream. And then I created accuracy assessment points within the 30-meter buffer zone and created confusion matrices. And these were all done back in ArcGIS Pro 3.0. So the results. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the results of the project. From a personal growth standpoint, I know that I learned a lot as this project presented numerous challenges. For example, it did not occur to me that I would need to find different techniques for producing the buffer polygons around small versus large streams. This was because of the width of the streams themselves. The hydrology file that I imported represents all streams by a single polyline feature, no matter the size of the stream. Even the state's largest rivers, like the Susquehanna River, are traced by just a skinny line. The Create Buffers tool worked great to buffer the small streams, but I had to manually create a polygon for the Conestoga River. But then the Create Buffers tool would not work on a polygon, so I rerouted and found that I could create buffers using the pairwise buffer tool. Then I removed the river polygon from the middle using the split editing tool. I also found that the hydrology file did not always show streams within their current beds. Notice on this image to the right, the far left of this image, there's a discrepancy where the stream bed is not where the hydrology line is indicating. I don't think that this difference significantly affected the results overall. This was really just a problem in the smallest stream. The change in method for producing the buffers forced me to find different ways of calculating the data I expected for my project, which is the percent tree coverage within the buffer areas. As you can see, I was able to use the Summarize Within tool for the small stream buffers. That was using the Create Buffers tool to create those buffers. I could use this Summarize Within tool to get the data, but the Conestoga River would not work on using the same tools. It just failed. So using the new method that I outlined in the previous slide for creating those buffers, I then used the Clip Raster tool to clip the classified raster to the buffer shape surrounding my wider Conestoga River. And then I was able to use the attribute table and summarize functions to get the percent tree coverage within that buffer. Overall, I think it worked well. I was able to get numbers that I feel I trusted. Okay, so this summary graph shows the percent tree coverage within each of the 5, 15, and 30 meter buffer zones, which basically represents 5, 15, and 30 meters from the stream boundary, the stream shore. It shows this for each of the 3 streams that I chose to examine. It shows that the larger the river, the greater the percent tree coverage in the buffer zone. That's can be seen at the far left of the graph at 5 meters. You can see that the Conestoga River, which is the largest river, had the highest percentage of forested buffer zone. Other trends that it shows are interesting, such as the decrease in total percent coverage for trees as distance increased from the stream, but this only was true for the largest stream, the Conestoga River. And I'm not sure whether these differences within the stream or between streams are caused by perhaps land use differences. There's a lot of agriculture in our area. Stauffer Run, the smallest river, which had the smallest percent tree coverage in the buffer zones, which was static at all distances, is consistent with it being emanating from a spring that's on a farmer's land next to our high school. So I'm not too surprised to see that. What this data does not show very well is the difference, the change in the buffer zone percent tree coverage along the length of the run. It just sort of averages all the area to find a percent tree coverage. So I'm not sure if these differences are due to land use differences, like the agricultural versus other types of land use, or conservation initiatives and laws, or maybe just happenstance. But they do leave interesting questions unanswered, and perhaps one of the legacies of this project is to leave some of these questions for students to answer. The accuracy assessment of the classification was only done within the 30-meter buffer zones. Because the 30-meter buffer included within it both the 15 and 5 meters, I didn't think that it was necessary. And with only 2 classes, trees and non-trees, I expected relatively high accuracy, which I think I achieved here. I'm not entirely sure why the Mill Creek site had so many tree points that were classified as non-trees. I'd have to dig further into that to know why, but that's the lowest overall accuracy, is the user's accuracy of 66% for that class. But overall, I'm happy with the accuracy assessment. So throughout this process, I hit lots of dead ends when I had to back up and choose a different tool set and workflow. I know that I lucked out with the matching dates of the data. They were all 2019 data. Almost every single one of these data sets were from 2019. So the agreement of position of trees in the NAPE imagery and the NDSM made a great contribution to the overall accuracy of the classification. I realize that this is something that's going to plague me going forward with other projects, but having such a nice matchup with that here is something that was a dream. I'll look forward to trying to do that with as many data sets as I can. One of the most joyous moments was when I inspected the NAPE raster and NDSM rasters with the swipe tool and found that they overlap perfectly. That was very, very satisfying, and I'm happy now to know how to do that. But if I were to start over from scratch, I would have found a better series of segmentation algorithms. I was scared to spend so much time waiting for the algorithms to run, but I forgot completely about performing only on a subset of the image. So if I had a do-over, I would choose a subset in eCognition to quickly test parameter changes and their outcomes. And I think the output metrics would be more accurate as a result as well. I would also create stream bed polygons manually from the get-go, just to avoid the discrepancies like the ones I showed in the small stream. And most importantly, I would build in ways that high school students at my school can be a part of this project. 2 ideas that I have come up with that they could do is maybe some on-the-ground buffer zone measurements, or perhaps they could do drone surveys of some stream locations and visually compare the drone images to the NAPE imagery to see if they would be true enough and reflect current conditions. I think that would be a neat exercise. I'm excited to think where this project may go and what opportunities it may have for my students. And thank you for watching. Thanks. I learned a lot from watching all of you, and thank you again for watching my presentation.